Hello and welcome back to Pokemon TCG Center. In today's video we'll be looking at the Decidueye Obstagoon Bronzong deck. It is a deck for the standard format and it is a very interesting, we can say, log deck that can log basically Wii and GX Pokemons from attacks as well as basic Pokemons. So in combination of Obstagoon and Decidueye, you can also hit and spread damage all around the board, which is really good. But it is also those two Pokemons actually have very strong ability. So the first ability that the Decidueye carries is a Deep Forest Camo, and it is a ability that says that you can prevent all damage done to the Decidueye by attacks from opponents' Pokemon's Wii's and Pokemon's GX. With Splitting Arrow, you can hit for 90 and you need to have two energies, which one of those two needs to be grass. And this attack also does 20 to 2 of opponents' benched Pokemons. So theoretically with Splitting Arrow and with combination of Zigzagoon and Galarian Obstagoon, theoretically we can potentially snipe on the bench something like Jirachi, but in the format with Scoop Up Net, this is probably not gonna be super easy task to do. Anyways, the focus of this deck is basically to lock down your opponent either way with Galarian Obstagoon Abstract Attack or simply by having the Decidueye with a Deep Forest Camo, or potentially having a heat-proof Bronzong in case if we are playing against decks that are heavily loaded with fire Pokemons, for example against deck Sandiscorch VMAX. But Sandiscorch VMAX decks always plays one Cramorant, so we first need to deal with Cramorant as well. But basically with the Bronzong around, we can buy some time, potentially set up, and that's gonna be much more easier for us in that matchup. So this deck list actually features 17 Pokemons, which two of them are Zigzagoon's for that Headbutt Tantrum ability, as well as two Obstagoons, and there is no way to manually evolve from Zigzagoon to Obstagoon. The only way you can evolve is basically to play Rare Candy and evolve from Zigzagoon to Obstagoon. Second lineup of Pokemons obviously is 3-1-3 lineup of Decidueye, Dartrix, and Rowlet. We are playing Sky Circus Rowlet because if we use Bird Keeper, we can use Wind Shard and hit for 61 of our opponent benched Pokemon. So theoretically, imagine that this can actually help you to one-hit knock out Jirachi with Zigzagoon play in just a single turn, which is really good because you can also draw 3 extra cards. I mean, this deck is actually not easy to be played. It's actually a very complex deck, and you really need to know how to play this deck. You really need to have a lot of skill, and you need to actually play a lot to understand the deck and when you're gonna play specific card in specific moment and which card you're gonna actually search and what's gonna be the focus and the strategy against some decks. Obviously, one of each Bronzer and Bronzong, 2 copies of Jirachi for the Stellar Wish, which will allow us to actually set up much faster. There is also one Mewtwo with the Mind Report for that supporter play, as well as 3 copies of Intrepid Sword Zacians. What I really love about Zacian and Mewtwo combo is the fact that you can simply use Mind Report and then put the supporter on the top of your deck. If you're gonna end your turn, you can always pick that supporter card plus 2 more cards with Intrepid Sword, which is pretty cool, and then next turn you can have that supporter for play. Additionally, for setup, this deck plays 4 copies of Quick Ball. With the Quick Ball, we can search the deck for a basic Pokemon and obviously 3 communications, so we can trade one of the Pokemons from our hands for some other Pokemons that we might need at specific moment. Speaking about Rare Candy, obviously you need to have the maximum amount of candies, and this deck plays 4 copies of Rare Candy. Additionally, we have 2 copies of Ordinary Road, where we can simply shuffle some of the lost resources that we might ended up discarding or that we potentially just lost due to the knockout. So 2 copies of Ordinary Road in this deck as well. So with Ordinary Road, you can shuffle up to 2 Pokemons in combination and 2 basic energies from discard pile back into your deck. Additionally, 4 copies of Scoop Up Net and 4 copies of Switch. That's the way to go, you know. So basically, with 2 Scoop Up Nets, with 4 copies of Scoop Up Net and 4 copies of Switch, we have plenty of time to just simply switch and scoop our non-Wii Pokemons, in this case pretty much everything except for the Zacian, so Jirachi can be used multiple times per turn as long as we have enough Switch and Scoop Up Nets, but also we can pick up some damaged Pokemons like the Decidueye, for example, back into our hand with the Scoop Up Net as well, which can also be very helpful. Additionally, for the stadium play, this deck plays Turffield Stadium. Obviously it needs to have also help for that Evolution Grass Pokemon search, and it plays 1 Turffield Stadium, but also interesting decision is that Viridian Forest that can also help us a little bit to find a way to get that Darkness energy if we need it, or potentially Grass if we need as well. Speaking about other cards, also there are 2 copies of Big Parasol. That's the new tool card from the Darkness Ablaze set. Actually, not the latest one, because there is also Champion's Pet that's a little bit newer than it, but it's not a core set. You know, anyways, it says that as long as the Big Parasol is attached to the Pokemon in the active spot, we can prevent all effects of attacks from opponent's Pokemon down to all of our Pokemons in place, which basically means that we don't need to waste a space to bench down that Mew, which is kind of important because we can stop, you know, Inteleon VMAX damage spread, we can stop Zigzagoons and some other effects of attacks that might just, you know, affect our Pokemons in play, which is kind of important as well. Supporter lineup, as you can see, there is like 11 supporter cards. So starting first with Rosa, which is actually very important component and key component in this deck. It says that when one of our Pokemons is knocked down during opponent's last turn, we can search the deck for a Pokemon, trainer card, and a basic energy, reveal them to our opponent, and then put them into hand. It is a very good card. It is a key component for this deck, a very important supporter card for this deck. Without Rosa, this deck won't be what it is. And also, this deck plays obviously 3 copies of Professor Research, just in case if your hand is, you know, pretty much useless. You can always use Research, discard hand, draw 7, kind of important as well. There are also 2 Marnies, 1 copy of Boss's Orders, and 2 copies of Bird Keeper, which will help us to, you know, switch, drop 3 cards, but also gave us ability to use that Rowlet without energy cards and use that Wind Shard and hit for 61 of our opponent benched Pokemons. And theoretically with the Zigzagoon, we can add 10 more damage to that Pokemon, and we can potentially knock the Jirachi out, Fione out, maybe even in a mirror match Rowlet against Eternatus. We can just snipe Zigzagoons from the bench. And that's very important. I mean, really it is. But we can also set up multiple knockouts with those Decidueyes, where we also can just hit for 90, 20, 20, and then we can just, you know, play Boss's Order, snipe, or whatever we need against a specific deck, obviously. And yeah, speaking about energy cards, this deck plays 4 copies of Grass's energies, 3 copies of Darkness energies. Those are actually the basic energy cards, and 2 copies of Aura energies that can also be used and attached pretty much and be used as any type of the energy. So it's not the Rainbow energy anymore in the format, but Aura energies is much better because you can just discard a necessary card from your hand in a specific moment, and you can also take advantage of that Aura energy, where you can simply, you know, attach it either way to the Obstagoon for that Darkness energy or to that Decidueye for the Grass energy. But you could also attack with the Shady Stamp and hit for 70 as well with the Bronzong, which is really important because you also confuse your opponent active Pokemon with a Shady Stamp, but it will take some time to power up Bronzong. Possibly considering maybe also one more card for this deck, and obviously that card should be Oricorio GX I mean, Oricorio is a very good card. The biggest problem for me is the fact that I really wanted to build a deck that's, you know, the focus of this deck is just to be a one-price attacking deck without Zacian, without Oricorio. This specific list runs Zacian because Zacian is going to be much better in an early stage of the game for the setup. Oricorio is better in the mid to late game when you already managed the setup and when you're exchanging knockouts and when your opponent managed to somehow knock you out. But you know, if you manage to establish luck against your opponent, obviously Zacian would be better solution because your opponent will just try to knock the Zacian or Oricorio anyways. Hitting for 220 should be much harder than for like 170, but still, Zacian will help you to just draw more cards. Possibly also raise a stamp as well, so you can stamp your opponent. That might give you more time and more flexibility in the late game if your opponent somehow managed to take some, you know, prize cards. But overall, this deck looks pretty damn good. So that's the deck list for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you for your time, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. As always, have a nice day and goodbye.